Hi, first graders. Welcome to Tuesday's mini lesson on editing. So yesterday, we spent a bit of time talking about revising. And we talked about how to make your writing better and how you could reread it, read it with a partner, read it with a family member, add, remove, move some things around, and substitute. And we also talked about how our nouns and our verbs must work together. They have to agree in order for our sentences to make sense. Okay, so today, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on editing our stories. Okay, so we need to, one, reread our writing. We need to read it to a partner. We need to ask them if it makes sense. And we're going to check. We're going to check, does our writing have our sentences start with capital letters? Do we have spaces between our words? Do we have punctuation? Our periods, our exclamation points, our question marks? Does it have our speech bubbles? Our quotation marks? Does it have our commas? Are all of our words spelled correctly? Did we use our word wall? Did we use our word list? Did we try to sound them out the best way we could? Did we think about what we've been learning with phonics, about our silent E? Did we break our words into syllables, into chunks? How did we spell our words? And then, of course, is our writing neat? Can someone else read it? So here we go back to our book about what do authors do. Okay. And for authors, just like yourself, it might take you, for some of you, you might have taken the 4 weeks to write your story. Some of you might have written your story in 2 weeks. Some of you might have written your story in 1 week. Okay. Writers don't finish a story in one day. And sometimes they have to take a break, like we talked about yesterday, how you might be revising and you might get stuck and you might need to take a break. And that's okay, as long as that you go back to your writing. So some of you might be revising and editing one piece. Some of you might be revising and editing 2 stories. Some of you might be editing and revising a chapter book. You might be revising and editing a series. Okay, so some of you might be having more than one piece of writing to revise and edit this week, and that's fine. Okay, so you have all this week to work on your writing, just like these authors do in this book. Okay. They don't just take one day to do it. So they have their editors. So the authors work on their stories and then they give it to their editors. And your editors might be your mom and dad. They might be your classmates. So this week you might be with your teacher and conferencing with your teacher, and you might use one of the checklists that I will have attached below. And your teacher might put it up and present it, and you all might be editing each other's writing like we do in the classroom. So the editor suggests ways to make the story better. Okay, and then the author goes back and makes the changes to that. So today, you might hear, or tomorrow, or the next day, you might hear from your partners and your moms or your dads or your brothers or your sisters about ideas about how to make your writing the best piece of writing so that it's ready to be published. Okay, and then you'll go and you'll make those changes, and you might have a checklist like this that says, okay, spaces, yep, checked off, I did that. Oh, I didn't use my word wall, but I used my word list, check. I wrote letters for most of the sounds. I checked the vowels and the vowel teams and the silent E's, check. My punctuation and my capital letters, I checked to make sure that that was all correct. I made sure that if I had commas in there that I checked that off, and also if I had quotation marks that I had them in the right spot. And then you might then go back and read your writing and make sure that whoever is checking your writing with you, whether that's your sister, your brother, classmate, mom, or dad, that they can also read your writing. And then you want to make sure that it also has the parts of a fiction story. So you want to make sure that your story stayed on topic and that you talked about your characters and that you talked about your setting, okay? And that you have your 3 events, okay? Your first event, your second event, your third event. That you have your problem, maybe it's up here, okay? And if we're looking at our story hand, and that you have your solution, okay? And that you have your pictures and that everything is ready, okay? And so you'll have all this week to go back to your stories. Story, if you wrote one, or stories, if you wrote more than one, and to make sure that you revise them and edit them. And then at the end of the week on Thursday or Sunday, we're going to be putting it all together to publish that story, okay, or that chapter book or that series, okay? So at the bottom of this video, you'll have a grammar activity to do with sentence writing and making sure that Mrs. Bourne's sentences are correct. Okay, and I'm going to be asking you to think about the nouns and the verbs, or the subjects and the verbs agreeing, and that I have my present tense, my past tense, and my future tense verbs agreeing in my sentences and making the changes to them. And then also making sure that my writing had capital letters, that my writing had spaces between them, that my writing had the right punctuation, that my writing, that I tried my best with my spelling, and that I used my words that you have at home. Okay, so you might see some errors in my sentences that you'll have to correct my spelling as well, and that my writing is neat. Now, that might be a little bit more difficult because Mrs. Bourne's going to type it, but maybe just looking to see, did I use the right font? Is it the same size? Is it the same kind of font? Okay, so that's something you can do to check Mrs. Bourne's writing, because you are my revisers and you are my editors this week. Okay, first graders, good luck. Thank you, and have a wonderful day of writing, whether that's revising or editing.